Hi everybody, welcome back on the channel. Armored Pants here, and I have the next video for you in the new American heavy line, the Tier VIII, the M-III-Yoh. As always, we will have a look at the details of the tech spec. We'll then have a look at some gameplay, etc. We have a mastery game, quite an interesting mastery game and a very unexpected one, and one where I actually didn't play very well, I have to say, but a kind of cheap mastery, which is kind of indicative of this whole line. It's the same at Tier 9 and Tier 10. There's a lot of cheap masteries, and let's see what inferences we can draw from that data as well. This is a decent tank. I wouldn't say it's amazing. It has a lot of pluses and minuses, as does the tank before it, but we will go through all of those, and hopefully you'll get a better picture, a better sensation of what this tank is actually like to play and how maybe to play it. So looking at the tech spec now, we will actually have a look at some of the parameters, give you some tips about how to maximize the tank's performance. So firstly, in terms of provisions, I would use a bottle of cola, improved fuel, and a case of cola. Then in terms of the gun system itself, there are two different guns. They're both 105mm, one of them is an autoloader. The top gun's an autoloader with 3 shells in the magazine. You really need to get this because the pen, the reload, everything on the DPM on the lower gun is really bad. So in order to make this tank effective, you need to get that upgraded gun system ASAP. Once you have it, then the DPM of this tank is actually, it's quite okay. It's quite okay. It's just under 2.8k per minute, so it's actually quite decent for a Tier 8 heavy. And in terms of any equipment, what I would do is I would run calibrated shells, supercharged and refined gun on the gun system. And the reason for that is that the difference in the magazine reload between calibrated shells and gun rammer is only 0.4 seconds. So it's 20.8 with calibrated shells, it's 20.4 with gun rammer, right? So the difference on a magazine reload of that length is inconsequential, as Dr. Evil would say, inconsequential. So you're really getting that additional pen, and the pen numbers are 236 with calibrated shells versus 225 with gun rammer. So not huge, but you're getting some extra pen. So that you're getting that basically for free, right? And the interesting thing about the magazine reload time is that there's a very short difference, 0.4 seconds, we said, but shell reload time within the magazine remains the same whether or not you use calibrated shells or gun rammer. It's 2.7 seconds. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't speed up if you use gun rammer. So therefore, I always use calibrated shells when I have a long reloading magazine on an autoloader. Just a little tip, feel free to use it, or if you don't, feel free not to use it. The tank itself, another very interesting thing about it is it has low muzzle velocity. It's only 1300 meters per second with supercharge. If you don't use supercharge, it's very low, so I would use supercharge, please do. You also need to use supercharge, in my opinion, to get that penetration loss over distance down. It's 6 seconds if you use, so it's 6% if you use supercharge and refined gun. If you don't use supercharge, it's 12%. 12% loss is huge. It means instead of having a 94% chance of hitting your target, you've only got an 88% chance of penning. It's crazy, right? So I would definitely use that. You can see here, looking at the arm profile, that you can side scrape in this tank. You can see here the relative armor numbers, even at this acute angle, not the optimal side scraping angle. The relative armor numbers, if you look here in the top left, are quite strong. Turret is almost impossible to pen. You can pen the cupola, but it's a really, really small target. Very difficult to hit and pen, especially at long distance. When you're front on, even if you're up tiered, it's really the bottom plate that you need to worry about. So if you are in a side scraping position and hide that bottom plate, then you can get a lot of bounces. It has 8 degrees gun depression, so you can go hull down on this. It's a bit easier to go hull down on in the predecessor, the Tier 7. Because that only had 7 degrees of gun depression. As I said, for me, 8 degrees is the minimum amount of gun depression you need to be a hold down tank. So this has that minimum amount. Obviously 10 or 12 degrees is better, but with this 8 degrees, you can at least have a chance of going hull down. The ass on this tank is really vulnerable, so you're like Tim Robbins' Shawshank Redemption. You need to keep your ass out of trouble, and just thinking of mop and bucket scene. It's only 52 millimeters of armor on the back on your ass. So basically everything at tier 7, almost everything at tier 7, everything at tier 8 can pen you a HE rounds into the back, so you're going to take a lot of damage, so you need to protect your ass. So just be aware of that too. You can see here, looking front on, against tier 9s, the bottom plate and actually some of the middle plate are vulnerable. But against tier 7s and tier 8s, it's really just the bottom plate that's vulnerable. So this tank front on, it can be a bit of a bully. If you're top tier, you can bully a bit in this tank, especially if you can protect that lower plate. In terms of its other characteristics, well, its gun handling index is 15.8, which is really good. I mean, that's really good for a tier 8 heavy, and significantly better than the Russians, better than most tier 8 tanks actually. I mean, that's German level of gun handling. And what's interesting is that this is not delivered because of the muzzle velocity, because we said that's low. It's delivered because of the low dispersion, so it has an accurate gun system. And also the reload between shells mean you're not going to get this double bloom, so you're not going to have this dispersion multiplier. So basically the 2.7 seconds allows you to have relatively good accuracy on your with your gun system. Now its mobility index is 3.25, so it's a bit lower than the tier 7. So if you're thinking about using this as a medium tank, it can be used as a medium tank, because that mobility is pretty good. Anything over 3 in a heavy is pretty good. You're moving into kind of heavium territory, but just bear in mind it is a bit more sluggish than its predecessor. The other thing is that its power to weight ratio is really good, and its traverse is really good on hard terrain, but on soft terrain. So if you go into water on this tank, you lose half of your mobility. So if you are in a brawling situation or a circle of death, the difference between being on hard terrain like here and being in the water is massive, right? It basically handles like a completely different tank. So just be aware of that, guys, and you need to compensate for that. And if possible, you need to avoid going in onto soft terrain, because this tank does not handle well on soft terrain. We're going to look at the master game here. As I said, I don't play particularly well. I was really surprised, you know, like crying game level of surprise when the mastery badge popped up at the end of this, because I was like, fuck. Just as I said when I got hit by that massive fucking round, I'm going to drive up onto the hill here and make a total balls out of this. And the reason is I was distracted because I was actually looking at the minimap. I was trying to figure out what the fuck hit me. It was, I think it was the WT, right? I hadn't known where he was, but I don't know if I wasn't sure if he was spotted. I was looking at him, then I was trying to figure out the minimap, and then, by the way, what I did there, I wasn't trying to reload. I actually hit the fire button by accident, because again, I was up on that slope again, because I'm trying to figure out what that fucking WT is, because I'm one shot for him now. So I wasn't really concentrating on what I was doing. And here's that WT now. And I actually get some revenge on him now, because I'm actually going to load up a full magazine. And I'm actually able to put a few rounds into him. My allies are able to hit him too. And then with my magazine, I'm able to clear him off. I just clear him off with a HE round at the end. So a bit of revenge there for that massive hit. But he brought me down to a one shot for a big gun like him, so I need to be careful now. Now, when you have a magazine and an autoloader like this, you engage in the game differently, right? You can't engage in the game consistently in a linear pattern, because there's periods of the game where you're inactive and that you can't do any damage to the enemy when you're reloading. So for almost 21 seconds, after every almost 9 seconds, or 6 to 9 seconds, you're going to be inactive. By the way, I miss every one of these shots, by the way, guys. That's what I'm saying. It's like, I don't understand how I got mastery badge in this game. I missed every shot in that sequence. I wasted the whole magazine, and you know, that's 21 seconds plus the whatever is 6 seconds it took me to fire off, so that's almost 30 seconds that I have contributed nothing to the game. I actually lost one of my allies, so this is really poor play, right? So this is not what you expect from your teammates, and I would be disappointed if I was on my own team. But now I concentrate a bit more, and I'm actually able to clear off the tier 9 version of myself, and I'm going to actually rabbit from this K91, because he can unload that magazine into me and clear me off. And I don't want to leave my ally 1v1, even though the Conqueror is almost on full strength. I'm going to be able to come in here now and put one more shot in. By the way, if you listen here, guys, very interesting. My last shot, I don't get the kill, but actually it registers as me actually penning him, right? If you listen here, see, that one went right through, but I actually didn't get the kill. So it must have been almost simultaneous hits for myself and the Conqueror, which is unusual in the game. There you go. As I said, that's a real fucking crying game moment of surprise when that mastery badge popped up. Especially as I'd done like 3.5, 3.8k damage in other games and not gotten a masteries. I don't really know what that was about. Maybe it's capturing the bases and maybe killing the higher tier tanks to deliver that additional XP. But a very cheap mastery badge, I have to say. But as I was talking about the magazine, you've got periods of inactivity in the game where you can't really engage actively by firing at the enemy. So what you do with that downtime is do other activities like capture a base if possible, move into position, move around the map, or if there's enemy around, simply hide, because you can't do anything anyway, so just hide. It's the safest thing to do. Anyway guys, I hope you found that useful, I hope you found it enjoyable. I think that the naming sequence of these tanks is weird, right? It's like Star Wars, right? I mean, because you've got the M7, then you've got the M3, then you've got the M5 and M6. Doesn't make any sense, you know? Reminds me of that story actually when Obi-Wan Kenobi is talking to Master Yoda, and he says, Master Yoda, in your infinite wisdom, can you explain to me why our movies were released in a sequence of 4, 5, 6, then 1, 2, 3? Master Yoda looks at me and says, in charge of scheduling, I was. So, yeah, terrible joke, I know. Anyway, guys, I hope you found that useful. I hope you found it enjoyable. And now I guess all that remains for me to say is, as always, pants off.